Admiral Kang Tae-ho stood at the window of his office, looking out at the blue earth below. He was 63 years old, and he had spent his entire life preparing for a moment he hoped would never come. But it had come. The message from the Galactic Council sat on his desk, and its words burned in his mind. For 200 years, humanity had lived under the Council's rule. They called humans a probationary species. They said humans were too young, too primitive, too dangerous to be trusted with freedom. Every year, Earth paid heavy taxes to the Council. Every year, human ships were stopped and searched at checkpoints. Every year, humanity was reminded that they were nothing in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. Tae-ho had accepted all of this. He had smiled at alien diplomats, who looked at him like he was an animal. He had bowed to Council officials who treated Earth like a colony. He had waited. And he had planned. But this new directive was different. Directive 7 Alpha, it was called. The Council had decided that Earth had too many people. 8 billion humans was too many for one small planet. So the Council, in its wisdom, had offered a solution. 40% of humanity would be redistributed to other worlds. They would work in alien factories, alien farms, and alien mines. They would serve the Council's member species. The Council called it population management. Tae-ho called it what it was, slavery. He turned from the window and walked to the meeting room where Earth's leaders waited. The room was silent when he entered. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists all looked at him with fear in their eyes. They had all read the directive. "They want 3 billion of our people," said the president of the European Federation. Her voice was shaking. "They want to take them and scatter them across the galaxy like seeds. If we refuse, they will send a fleet," said Director Park Woo-jin. He was a small man with tired eyes, but those eyes held a dangerous light. "They have done this before. To other species. The ones who refused are not here anymore." Tae-ho looked at each person in the room. Then he spoke. 200 years ago, when the Council found us, we were children playing with fire. They had starships. We had rockets. They had weapons that could crack planets. We had nuclear bombs that seemed like toys compared to their power." He paused. "They gave us a choice. Join the Council as a probationary species, or be destroyed. We chose to survive. We smiled. We bowed. We paid their taxes and followed their rules. And now, they want our people," said a general. "What choice do we have?" Tae-ho looked at Director Woo-jin and nodded. Woo-jin stood up and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the table. Ships unlike anything the people in the room had seen before. Weapons that seemed to bend light itself. Stations hidden in the dark spaces between stars. "For 200 years, Woo-jin said, we have been building. In secret. In the shadows. We took every piece of alien technology we could find, and we studied it. We improved it. We made it our own." The images showed more and more. Orbital platforms around Earth that looked like simple stations, but held weapons of terrible power. A fleet of warships hidden in the asteroid belt. Soldiers in armor that could survive the vacuum of space. Project Nightfall, Woo-jin continued. "The Council thinks we are primitive. They think we have spent 200 years being good little servants. They are wrong." The room was silent as people tried to understand what they were seeing. "We can fight," Tae-ho said. "For the first time in 200 years. We can fight, and we can win." 3 days later, Earth's response was broadcast on every frequency in the galaxy. It was simple. It was clear. It was 2 words that would change everything. "We decline." Lieutenant Yoon Hana stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable when the Council's response came. She was young, only 28, but she had trained her whole life for war. Still, nothing had prepared her for what she saw on the tactical display. 3,000 warships dropped out of hyperspace near Saturn. They were massive, each 1 kilometers long, bristling with weapons. The Council had sent more firepower than humanity had ever seen. It was a message: submit or die. Admiral Tejo's voice came over the speakers, calm and cold. All stations. This is Admiral Kang. Execute Protocol Dawn. Across the solar system, things began to move. The civilian stations around Earth revealed their true nature as weapons platforms. The mining ships in the asteroid belt transformed into warships, and from the dark side of the moon, the hidden fleet emerged. Hana watched the alien armada approach. Her hands were steady on her console, but her heart was pounding. This was it. The moment humanity would live or die. "They are hailing us," said the communications officer. "Put it through," said Tejo. An alien face appeared on the main screen. It was one of the Velith, the oldest species in the Council. Its silver skin and 4 eyes made it look like something from a nightmare. "Humans," it said. Its voice was full of contempt. "You cannot win this. Surrender your world and your people, and some of you will be allowed to live. Fight, and you will be erased from history." Tejo did not respond. He simply nodded to Hana. She pressed a button. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden weapons activated. Beams of energy that folded space itself lanced out at the alien fleet. Missiles that moved faster than anything biological minds could track slammed into enemy shields. Ships piloted by advanced computers danced through the alien formation, striking and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The alien admiral's face changed from contempt to confusion to horror in the span of seconds. "What is this?" it screamed. "This is impossible. You are primitives." Hana watched as alien ships exploded one after another. The Council's mighty armada, the largest fleet ever assembled against a single species, was being torn apart. In 6 hours, it was over. 3,000 ships reduced to floating debris. 0 survivors. The galaxy fell silent. Admiral Tejo stepped forward and looked at the screen where the alien admiral's face had been. He activated the broadcast system. Every planet, every station, every ship in the galaxy would hear his next words. "We are not your servants," he said. "We are not your slaves. We are humanity. And this is our answer to your directive." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was like ice. "Send another fleet, please." Hana stood on the bridge as the message went out. Around her, the crew was silent. They had won. They had done the impossible. But as she looked at the debris field that had once been an armada, she felt no joy. Only a cold certainty that this was just the beginning. Earth had broken its chains. Now, it would have to face what came next. The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like fire. For 50,000 years, the Galactic Council had ruled with an iron hand. No species had ever defeated them. No species had ever dared to try. But the humans had done more than try. They had destroyed the greatest fleet the Council had ever assembled. And now they were coming for more. Captain Bake Nari sat in the command chair of the stealth carrier Ghost of Soul, watching the massive space station called Nexus through her ship's sensors. Nexus was the Council's primary shipyard. Every month, it produced dozens of warships. If humanity wanted to win this war, Nexus had to fall. But Nexus was protected by a defensive grid that could destroy any fleet that approached. Ships that tried to attack would be torn apart before they got close. So Nari had done something the Council never expected. She had hidden her fleet inside the defensive perimeter. For 3 months, her ships had been waiting in the shadows, cloaked and silent, drifting among the station's own supply ships. The aliens had walked past her soldiers without knowing. They had eaten meals next to human spies without suspecting. Now it was time. "All ships," Nari said quietly into her communicator. "Execute." The Ghost of Soul and its sister ships dropped their cloaking fields. They appeared inside the station's defenses like ghosts becoming solid. Before the aliens could react, human weapons were already firing. The battle for Nexus lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the greatest shipyard in the galaxy was burning. Nari walked through the ruined corridors, stepping over alien bodies, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Meanwhile, On a distant world called Refuge 7, Sergeant First Class Im Jian led his Dakabi shock troops through the mud and rain. The Council had told the galaxy that humans who were redistributed were being given new lives on beautiful planets. They had lied. Refuge 7 was not beautiful. It was a mining world where the air was poison and the water was acid. Humans worked in the mines 18 hours a day. They lived in metal boxes. They died by the hundreds, and nobody cared. Jian kicked down the door of a mining barracks and found them. Humans. Thousands of them. Men, women, and children with hollow eyes and broken bodies. They looked at the soldiers in their black armor and did not understand. They had forgotten what hope looked like. "We are here to take you home," Jian said. A woman fell to her knees and began to cry. A child ran forward and hugged Jian's leg, and something inside the sergeant, something he had kept locked away for years, began to burn. He had been trained to kill without emotion. But as he looked at what the Council had done to his people, he felt a rage that would never fully go away. The liberation of the human camps became the turning point of the war. When images of the conditions reached Earth, everything changed. Before, many humans had questioned whether the war was right. After, there were no more questions. The Council had shown its true face, and it was the face of a monster. Dr. Choi Soo-yeon was not a soldier. She was a scientist who studied alien life. But when the human fleet captured a Council archive ship, she was called in to examine its records. What she found changed everything she thought she knew. The archives contained files going back thousands of years. And in those files, she found a pattern. The Council did not just control species. They destroyed them. 12 civilizations had been marked as dangerous over the millennia. 12 civilizations had been quietly exterminated. Their names were erased from history. Their worlds were sterilized. Their people were turned to dust. Humanity was supposed to be the 13th. Soo-yeon brought her findings to Admiral Tae-ho. His face did not change as he read the reports. He simply nodded. "We always knew they were evil," he said. "Now we have proof." The war continued for 18 months. Battle after battle, world after world, the Council's power crumbled. Human fleets broke through defensive lines that were supposed to be unbreakable. Human soldiers liberated planets that had been under Council rule for thousands of years. And finally, the day came when human ships appeared above Harmony Prime, the Council's capital world. Commander Yoon Hana stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as the planet filled the view screen. It was beautiful, covered in golden clouds and silver oceans. For 50,000 years, this world had been the center of galactic power. Now it was surrounded by human warships. The siege lasted 2 weeks. The Council's last defenders fought hard, but it was not enough. One by one, their ships fell. One by one, their defenses crumbled, and finally, human soldiers walked into the Council chamber itself. The 5 Council speakers were waiting. They were ancient beings, each one thousands of years old, each one representing one of the galaxy's dominant species. They looked at the human soldiers with eyes full of hate and fear. Admiral Tae-ho entered the chamber and looked at each speaker in turn. Then he spoke. "You are under arrest for crimes against humanity. For crimes against the 12 species you destroyed. For crimes against every being who has suffered under your rule. You cannot do this." One speaker hissed. "We built this galaxy. We created order from chaos. Without us, everything will fall apart." "Perhaps," Tae-ho said, "but at least it will be free." The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species watched as the speakers were forced to answer for their crimes. Evidence was presented. Witnesses spoke. The truth that had been hidden for thousands of years was finally revealed. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was dissolution. The Galactic Council, an institution that had ruled for 50,000 years, ceased to exist. Hana watched the broadcasts with the rest of the crew. Around her, people celebrated. They had won. They had done the impossible. But she could not shake a feeling that something was wrong. "Sir," she said to Admiral Tae-ho as he passed by. "May I speak freely?" He stopped and looked at her. "Always. We won too easily," she said. The Council ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had technology far beyond ours. They had numbers we could not match. And yet we beat them in 18 months. She paused. They were afraid of something, sir. And I do not think it was us. Tejo studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I have had the same thought, he admitted. Keep that feeling close, Commander. I suspect we will need it soon, far away, in a sealed vault beneath the ruins of the council chamber. Dr. Suyon found a door that had not been opened in 12,000 years. It took her team 3 days to break through the security systems. When they finally opened the door, they found a single file inside. It was called The Devourer's Containment Protocol. Suyon opened the file and began to read. As she read, her face went pale. Her hands began to shake. And when she finished, she sat in silence for a long time. Then she reached for her communicator. Admiral Tejo, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You need to see this. Now, the galaxy had celebrated humanity's victory. They had cheered the fall of the Council. They had believed that a new age of freedom had begun. They were wrong. Something far worse than the Council was coming. And humanity had just rung the dinner bell. 6 months had passed since the Council fell. The galaxy was trying to find its balance in a new age. Human ships flew through space that had once been forbidden to them. Human diplomats sat in chambers where their kind had never been welcome. The chains were broken. Ambassador Omira walked through the great hall of the former council building on Harmony Prime. Once, this place had been the heart of galactic power. Now it was empty and quiet, waiting to become something new. Her job was to build alliances with the species that had once served the council. Most of them were grateful. They had been slaves in all but name, controlled and used by the 5 dominant species, but some of them looked at Mira with strange eyes. Not hate, something worse, pity. You do not understand what you have done, said a thin alien diplomat from a species called the Meth. He was old, with gray skin and trembling hands. The council was cruel, yes. But they kept the galaxy quiet. They kept us hidden. Hidden from what? Mira asked. The diplomat did not answer. He simply walked away. The next morning, his body was found in his quarters. He had taken his own life. The note he left behind contained only one word. Coming. Mira reported this to Admiral Tejo. He listened without expression, then shared what Dr. Suyon had found in the sealed vault. The Devourers, he said. A force that has hunted intelligent life since before the Council existed. The file contains very little information. Whatever they are, the Council was terrified of them. And we woke them up, Mira said quietly. We do not know that yet, Tejo replied. But we need to find out more. General Kwande Sung did not believe in monsters. He was a practical man who believed in guns and ships and soldiers. When the intelligence reports about devourers reached his desk, he threw them away. Stories, he said to his staff. The Council made up these stories to keep other species afraid. We have scanned every frequency, every dimension we can detect. There is nothing out there. Commander Hana stood at the back of the room during this meeting. She did not speak, but she remembered what the old diplomat had said. Hidden. The Council had kept the galaxy hidden. Perhaps whatever was out there could not be found by looking. Perhaps it had to find you. 3 weeks later, a message arrived from the outer rim of the galaxy. It was from Elder Veth, a being no one in the human government had ever heard of. The message was simple. I have waited 15,000 years to deliver a warning. I will wait no longer. Come to me. Dr. Suyon was sent to meet Elder Veth on a small moon at the edge of known space. What she found there made her heart stop. Elder Veth was not like any alien she had ever seen. His body was more machine than flesh, kept alive by technology so old it seemed like magic. His eyes were deep and sad, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ages. My species was called the Norathi, he said. We were scientists, artists, dreamers. 15,000 years ago, we were a great civilization of 400 billion souls spread across 1,000 worlds. He paused. The silence stretched. I am the last. There are no others. Soo-yun felt cold. What happened to your people? The devourers came. Veth's voice was steady, but his hands shook. They did not invade us like an army. They did not bomb us like an enemy. They ate us. Our worlds, our people, our history, everything we were, everything we had built, they consumed it all. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, images so terrible that Soo-yun had to look away. Creatures the size of continents tearing through planets, smaller entities hunting down fleeing ships. A darkness that swallowed everything it touched. They are not a species, Veth continued. They are a force. They exist between dimensions, in spaces that normal physics cannot describe. They sleep for eons, and when they wake, they feed. They are drawn to noise, psychic noise. The noise of war, of conflict, of aggression. The council, Soo-yun whispered. They knew about this. The council did not rule the galaxy, Veth said. They hid it. Every war they stopped, every species they controlled, every rebellion they crushed, it was all to keep the galaxy quiet. The great containment stations scattered across space are not power generators. They are signal dampeners. They mask our civilizations from devourer detection. Soo-yun understood now. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. The council was not evil because they wanted power. They were evil because they chose control over truth. They enslaved the galaxy to save it, but they never told anyone why. The war we fought, she said. The battles, the destruction. You rang a bell, Veth said. A very loud bell. And now they are waking up. When Soo-yun brought this information back to Earth, the reaction was chaos. Some leaders refused to believe it. Some demanded proof. Some wanted to surrender to whatever was coming. General Dae-sung still insisted it was all a lie. But then the first colony went silent. Outer Rim Colony 17 stopped transmitting on a Tuesday morning. No distress call. No final message. Just silence. The human ship sent to investigate found nothing. The colony was simply gone. Not destroyed. Not abandoned. Gone. The buildings were there. The vehicles were there. But every living thing had vanished. Then Colony 16 went silent. Then 15. Then a dozen more. A wave of silence spreading inward from the edge of the galaxy. Admiral Taeho ordered a probe sent to the next colony in the pattern, before it went dark. The probe was designed to transmit for as long as possible, no matter what happened. The footage it sent back was something Hana would never forget. The sky above the colony turned black. Not dark black. Empty. A void that swallowed light itself. And from that void, they came. Creatures that made no sense. Some were the size of cities, with bodies that seemed to shift between solid and smoke. Others were smaller, but moved so fast they were almost invisible. They fell on the colony like a tide falling on sand. The colonists tried to run. They tried to fight. It did not matter. The creatures did not kill them quickly. They consumed them. Absorbed them. The screams in the footage lasted for hours, and then there were no more screams, just silence. The probe kept transmitting until a massive shape filled its view. Something the size of a moon, with what might have been eyes, looked directly at the camera. The footage ended. Hana stood on the bridge of the Indomitable watching the footage with the rest of the command staff. No one spoke. No one moved. They had faced the council and won. They had believed they were strong. Now they knew the truth. They were not the predators. They were the prey. Admiral Taeho was the first to speak. His voice was calm, as it always was. But for the first time, Hana saw something in his eyes that might have been fear. Recall all fleets to defensive positions, he said. We are going to war. Commander Hana wanted to ask, how do you fight something like that? How do you kill a force of nature? How do you defeat a monster from a nightmare? But she did not ask. She simply followed orders. Because that was all any of them could do. The silence was spreading. The devourers were coming. And humanity, The species that had shattered a 50,000-year empire was about to discover what it truly meant to be afraid. The first year of the Devourer War was a year of horror. They came not as an army but as a swarm. They did not use ships that traveled through hyperspace. They folded through dimensions that humans did not know existed. One moment, a star system was safe. The next moment, the sky was full of nightmares. Ambassador Mira worked without sleep, forging alliances that would have been impossible a year ago. Species that had hated each other for thousands of years now stood together. The enemy of the old enemy was now their only hope. "We called ourselves the Coalition," Mira said at the first joint military meeting. "We are no longer human or alien. We are survivors. And we will fight together or die alone." The former council species brought their technology. Humanity brought its creativity. Together, they built weapons that had never existed before. But it was not enough. Captain Nari took the Ghost of Soul deep into Devourer-held space on a mission everyone knew was probably suicide. Her orders were simple. Observe and report. Learn anything that might help. What she found changed her forever. She watched a Devourer fleet enter a star system. But they did not attack the planets first. They went straight for the sun. Millions of entities surrounded the star and began to feed. They drained its energy like parasites drinking blood. The star dimmed and shrank as Nari watched in horror. Only when the sun was dying did the Devourers turn to the planets. And by then, everything that lived there was already freezing in the darkness. "They do not just eat life," Nari reported back. "They eat everything. Matter, energy, light itself. They leave nothing behind." Commander Hanna led the defense of Fortress Kepler, a massive space station built at a choke point between Devourer space and the Coalition core worlds. For 3 days, human and alien ships fought side by side against waves of attacking creatures. Hanna lost track of time. She lost track of herself. There was only the next order, the next target, the next moment of survival. Her crew died around her one by one. She kept fighting. On the 3rd day, the attacks stopped. The Devourers pulled back and disappeared. Fortress Kepler had held, but when Hanna looked at the tactical data, she felt no victory. The creatures they had fought were small ones, the weakest ones. Scouts. Elder Veth called them when he heard the news. "You have not faced them yet," the ancient alien said. "Not truly. What you fought was their first breath, their first taste. Now they know you can fight back." "Is that not a good thing?" Hanna asked. Veth's ancient eyes were filled with sorrow. "No. Now they will send the hunters." Sergeant Jian led the Dokkaebi on evacuation mission after evacuation mission. Every time a world was about to fall, his soldiers went in to save whoever they could. It was never enough. On a planet called New Hope, Jian saved 3,000 people. He watched 6 million die. He heard their screams as the Devourers came down from the sky. He carried children to shuttles while their parents were torn apart behind them. He started keeping a notebook. In it, he wrote the names of every person he could not save. Page after page after page. The notebook was almost full now, and the war was just beginning. Dr. Su Yan worked with scientists from a dozen species, trying to understand what the Devourers were, where they came from, what they wanted, and most importantly, if they had any weaknesses. The breakthrough came when they captured a small Devourer entity. It took 1,000 soldiers to trap it. It took 100 scientists to contain it. But finally, they had a specimen to study. What they found was terrifying. "They are not alive in the way we understand life," Su-Yun reported. "They have no biology, no chemistry. They are made of something we cannot name. Dark matter, perhaps. Or something beyond even that." "Can they be killed?" Admiral Tejo asked. "Yes. We have killed many. But they do not care. Individual entities are meaningless to them. They are connected, like cells in a body. And that body is controlled by something they call the Hollow King." "What is the Hollow King?" Su-Yan was quiet for a moment. "I do not know. But every entity we have captured has the same thought burned into its mind. Serve the king, feed the king. The king is hungry. Elder Veth revealed his species' final gift. 12 devices that his people had built in their last days. Psychic silence bombs, he called them. They could mask entire star systems from devourer detection. His people had used one to save him. The others had been hidden across the galaxy, waiting for someone to find them. 12 bombs, General Daesung said, and millions of systems. How do we choose? There was no good answer. Admiral Tae-ho made the decision himself. He did not delegate it. He did not share the burden. He sat alone in his quarters and chose which systems would live and which would die. The list was broadcast to the coalition. Some systems celebrated. Most systems received nothing. They knew what that meant. Hana visited the admiral after the broadcast. She found him sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. "How do you do it?" she asked. "How do you choose who lives?" Tae-ho did not look at her. "I do not choose who lives. I choose who dies. And I carry their names with me. All of them." He paused. "Someday, when this is over, I will answer for what I have done. But that day is not today. Today, I do what must be done." The war continued. The coalition won some battles and lost others. Slowly, the devourers pushed inward toward the galaxy's core. World after world fell into darkness. Silence spread across the stars. And then, on a day that would be remembered forever, something new appeared at the edge of coalition space. It was a devourer entity larger than anything ever recorded. It was bigger than a planet, bigger than some moons. It hung in space like a wound in reality. A darkness so deep that looking at it hurt, and it spoke. Every communication device in the coalition received the same message at the same moment. It was not words exactly. It was a presence, a thought pressed into every mind. "We remember your noise. We remember your war. For ages we slept, and your screaming woke us. Now we are hungry." The message paused. The presence grew heavier, darker. "We are coming home." Hana stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, frozen like everyone else. "Coming home," it had said. What did that mean? Then she understood, and the understanding filled her with a cold deeper than space. The Milky Way, Earth, humanity's home. That was where the devourers had come from. Long ago, before humans existed, before the dinosaurs, before life itself, the devourers had been born in this galaxy, and now they were returning to the place where they began. All fleets, Admiral Tae-ho's voice came over the speakers. It was steady. It was calm. It was the voice of a man who had already accepted his death. Set course for Sol. We make our stand at Earth. The coalition fleet turned toward home. 12,000 ships, from 200 species, united by desperation. Behind them, the Hollow King began to move. The final battle was coming. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. Commander Hana looked at it through the viewport of the Indomitable, and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Home. This was what they were fighting for. This small world, this fragile cradle, everything humanity had ever been had started here. The coalition fleet gathered in orbit, 12,000 ships from 200 species, the last hope of the galaxy. Human destroyers flew beside alien cruisers. Ships that had been enemies 2 years ago now shared battle frequencies and defensive formations. Admiral Tae-ho stood on the bridge, watching the fleet assemble. His face was calm, but Hana knew him well enough now to see the weight he carried. He had led humanity from slavery to freedom. He had made impossible choices, and now he would lead them into the final battle. "The Devourers will be here in 6 hours, said the tactical officer. "Scout reports indicate a fleet of millions, maybe more. They are not stopping to feed on anything in their path. They are coming straight for us. 6 hours. Hana thought about all the things she had never done, all the words she had never said. Then she pushed those thoughts away. There was no time for regret. There was only duty. "All hands to battle stations," Tae-ho ordered. This is it. Whatever happens today, we face it together. The hours passed like centuries. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots ran final diagnostics. Civilians on Earth gathered in shelters and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. And then the sky turned dark. The devourers came. They poured out of a hole in space like water from a broken dam. Millions of entities, from creatures the size of ships to beasts larger than moons. They blotted out the stars. They filled the solar system with darkness. And behind them, vast and terrible, came the Hollow King. It was not a creature. It was a wound in reality, a hole where something should be but was not. Looking at it made Hana's mind scream. It was wrong. It should not exist. But it did, and it was hungry. All ships, open fire, Tejo commanded. The battle for Earth began. Beams of energy lanced across space. Missiles exploded against devourer flesh. Ships dove and twisted, fighting for every inch of void. The coalition fought with everything they had, every weapon, every trick, every desperate strategy. It was not enough. For every devourer they killed, 100 more took its place. For every victory, there were a dozen defeats. Ships vanished into clouds of dark entities. Crews died screaming as their vessels were consumed. The defensive line broke, reformed, and broke again. Captain Nari led a strike force on a suicide mission called Operation Final Dawn. Her target was a chain of 3 stars in the outer system, rigged with devices that would make them explode in sequence. The blast would create a shockwave that could tear through the devourer fleet. The Ghost of Soul fought through walls of enemies to reach the detonation point. Nari lost half her crew in the first 10 minutes. She lost another quarter reaching the targets. But she got there. Detonation in 30 seconds, she said over the comm. Her voice was steady despite the blood running down her face. It has been an honor serving with you all. The stars exploded. A wave of fire and force ripped through space, destroying a third of the devourer fleet in a single moment. The Ghost of Soul was caught in the edge of the blast, torn apart and sent spinning into the void. Sergeant Jian led a rescue team that found Nari's escape pod drifting in the debris. She was alive, barely. As they pulled her aboard, she smiled and said, "Did we get them?" "You got them," Jian replied. "You got a lot of them, but it was still not enough." The Hollow King advanced, untouched by any weapon they threw at it. Beams passed through it. Missiles vanished into its darkness. It was not made of matter or energy. It was made of absence, of hunger, of void. "Nothing is working," General Dae Sung reported. "We cannot hurt it. We cannot stop it." Dr. Soo-yeon's voice came over the command frequency. She was on a research station behind the lines, still working even as the battle raged. "I know what they are," she said. "I finally understand. The devourers feed on conflict, on aggression, on the will to destroy. Every attack we make, every missile we fire, feeds them. They eat our anger, our hate, our desire to kill." "Then how do we fight them?" Tejo asked. "We do not. We cannot defeat them by fighting harder. But there is something they cannot consume. Something that burns them. My research, Elder Veth's memories, it all points to the same thing." "What?" Soo-yeon's voice was quiet but clear. "Love. Sacrifice. The choice to protect instead of destroy." When the Norathi faced extinction, some of them stopped fighting and simply connected. They thought of their families, their friends, the people they wanted to save. And the devourers could not consume them. It burned them instead. Hana understood. The cold she had felt all battle began to warm. She thought of her mother, who had raised her alone after her father died. She thought of the crew of the Indomitable, who had become her family. She thought of Earth below, with its billions of innocent lives. She activated the broadcast to all coalition forces. "All ships, listen to me," she said. "Stop fighting to kill them. Stop thinking about destroying them. Think about the people behind you. Think about what you are protecting. Fight to save, not to kill." Let them feel what we feel. Let them burn. The order spread across the fleet. Ships that had been attacking began to shield each other instead. Soldiers stopped firing with rage and started fighting with purpose. The change was small at first. Then, it grew. The Devourers began to hesitate. Their movements became jerky, uncertain, and where their darkness touched ships crewed by people fighting for love instead of hate, they pulled back. They burned. The Hollow King screamed. It was not a sound. It was a sensation, a terrible wrenching in the soul. It felt the change. It felt its food turning to poison. Admiral Tejo looked at the Hollow King on the view screen. Then he turned to Hana. Commander, I am going to ask you to do something difficult. Hana met his eyes. She already knew what he was going to say. The Hollow King is the source, Tejo continued. If it falls, they all fall. The Indomitable can reach it. But this will be a one-way trip. Hana nodded. I understand, sir. I am not ordering you to do this. I am asking. Hana looked around the bridge at her crew. They had heard everything. They knew what it meant. Not one of them looked away. Not one of them asked to leave. We are with you, sir, Hana said. All of us. Tejo smiled. It was the first time she had ever seen him smile. Then let us finish this together. The Indomitable turned toward the Hollow King. Its engines burned at full power, driving it straight into the heart of darkness. Around them, the rest of the fleet fought to hold the line, to give them time. The Devourers tried to stop them. Entities swarmed the ship, tearing at its hull. Systems failed, compartments breached, crew members died. But the Indomitable kept going. Hana took the helm herself. Her hands were steady, her heart was full. She thought of everyone she had ever loved, everyone she was saving by doing this. The fear was gone. There was only light. Entering the Hollow King in 30 seconds, she reported. Tejo stood beside her. Thank you, Commander. For everything. Thank you, sir, for showing us what we could be. The Indomitable entered the Hollow King. It was like falling into nothing. The darkness pressed in from all sides. But inside the ship, there was no darkness. Every person aboard focused on a single thought. Not anger, not fear, not the desire to destroy. Love. The memory of a mother's smile. The warmth of a child's hand. The face of a friend. The beauty of a sunset on Earth. All the small things that made life worth living. All the reasons to keep fighting. The Hollow King felt them. And it screamed again. But this time, the scream was different. It was pain. It was fear. It was a creature made of hunger, finally feeling full. The Indomitable detonated. The explosion was visible across the galaxy. A burst of light that tore through the Hollow King from within. The great entity of darkness shattered like glass. And as it fell, so did all the others. Across the solar system, the Devourers dissolved. Their connection to this dimension was severed. Their hunger was finally satisfied not by feeding, but by receiving something they had never known. The battle was over. 1 year later, Ambassador Mira stood before the new Galactic Assembly. It was not a council. No species ruled over others. Every voice was equal. Every people was free. We gather today to remember, she said. To remember those who fell. To remember those who sacrificed. To remember what we learned. She read the names of the Indomitable crew. Admiral Kang Tejo, Commander Yoon Hana, and hundreds of others who had given everything. They taught us that strength is not the power to destroy. Strength is the courage to protect. Strength is the choice to love when it would be easier to hate. They did not defeat the Devourers with weapons. They defeated them with their hearts. Sergeant Jian stood at attention during the ceremony. His notebook of names was finally closed. He would carry those names forever. But now he would carry them as motivation, not as guilt. Captain Nari commanded the new flagship Tomorrow, leading missions to help devastated worlds rebuild. She still walked with a limp from her injuries. She said it reminded her of the cost of freedom. Dr. Suyon founded the Institute of Universal Connection, studying not how species were different, but how they were the same. She believed that the key to surviving the darkness was understanding the light they all shared. And on Earth, in a quiet garden near the Memorial for the Fallen, a statue was built. It showed Admiral Tae-ho standing with his hand extended, not a fist raised in victory, not a weapon held in threat, just an open hand, offered in welcome. The inscription at the base read, "We broke the chains. We faced the darkness. We did it together." Children played in the garden now. They did not know much about the war. They only knew that their parents were safe, that the sky was full of stars instead of nightmares, that the galaxy was at peace. That was enough. That was everything. And somewhere, in the space between dimensions, what remained of the devourers drifted and dreamed. They were not destroyed. They could not be destroyed. But they had tasted something new, something warm, something that did not make them hungry. For the first time in their ancient existence, they did not want to feed. They wanted to understand. Perhaps, one day, they would return. Not as enemies, not as devourers, but as something else entirely. That story, however, was for another time. For now, the galaxy was quiet. The stars were bright. And humanity, the species that had shattered empires and faced cosmic horrors, finally had time to do what they had always wanted. They lived.